It's wood chopping time. Chopping wood is one of those chores that you kind of pretend not to like because you got to go out in the cold and you got to get all geared up and run saws and stuff, but in reality you really do like. Especially when you get to this point when everything's stacked up on a stump and you can just go pop, pop, pop and split through it. I've got today some really dry white fir, grand fir, that should split real easily, and I'm actually pretty pumped to chop it. I also want to show you one of the solutions I have for making kindling. Getting kindling is not hard, but getting a lot of it is kind of a pain. And chopping small stuff with an axe or hatchet can be a little bit dangerous to your hands, so I got a solution for that as well. But right now I'm just gonna pop some wood in half for a few minutes. I hope you enjoy watching it. I usually try to get them into quarters, but if they're real small halves, it's fine, it'll burn. See a bunch of branches like this, it's gonna be a little harder to split. It's best to either avoid them or go straight through them. But if you get them off to a little bit to the side, your axe just follows it. It's real bound up in there. There's some skill involved in anything you do. I mean, this is not like rocket science, but you could definitely get better at it. You could always get better than you are. One thing that I learned the hard way is when you're chopping through a piece of wood, you really want to aim for the kind of the edge here, you know, flat. You don't want to get over here because when that comes through, it's basically gonna, the whole weight of the axe head is gonna hit on the handle and you'll break a handle. And one of my buddies in Colorado, I broke his axe and he's like, oh, it's no big deal, it's my grandfather's axe. I just felt terrible. And anyway, it's something that couldn't be put back together. When you get stuck in a log like that, you can come up and down and pop it, but that gets really heavy. So it's usually best just to take it back out. This little one won't matter, but sometimes if you can tell you're far enough in, you can just give it a twist, pop it the rest of the way. One thing we did real early on is we built this little stand for our axe. When we first got on our property, we only had the one axe, no hatchets or anything. And so to split up kindling was kind of a pain. But now I just really like it. All it is a couple 4x4s that we screwed together. And it's got a little block here to keep the axe head flat. So I put it in here like this. It basically makes a stationary wedge that I can use for splitting kindling. Every time I go out in the woods to get some firewood, I'm always sure to cut one round that's pretty short. And that way it splits real easily. And then with it up like this, I just take the pieces that I split off of that and hit them with a mallet. That keeps me from having to swing this axe head at my own hands and little pieces of wood. And instead I use this little mallet. Now, it's hard to get a mallet like this. What you have to do is make it yourself and then let a dog eat about half of it and then throw it in your wood pile because you're mad. And then later come back and say, that's gonna be a perfect mallet. Now with this this little situation here, you really want to have a glove on your hand because you're going to be holding your wood kind of close. And you have a lot more control with a little mallet than you do with swinging a big axe. But you can still get your pinky up against this, or if you, worst case, you could actually get your own hand. Don't worry about it too much because it's tiny stuff. But having a glove on, especially the hand that's handling the wood, is a really good idea. I split them really small because this is kindling and I want it to be the first stage of my fire, first or second stage of my fire. Just makes the mornings a lot better around here. Sometimes I put a bucket here as like a little game, see how many of them I can get in the bucket. I usually don't do real well. It's actually really fun. I don't worry about them getting wet when they fall in the snow when it's cold because frozen water is not wet. Now this wood is completely different. This is a piece of pine. I believe it's a ponderosa pine. I found a big stump of this in our woods, and when we went to burn it, it is really, really sappy. As soon as you pick it up, you can tell it's probably twice the mass of a chunk the same size of fir. And it's dry, but it's really full of sap. And what that does for us is we cut little bitty pieces of it, matchstick size pieces of it like this. And we use it to start our fire because it smokes a ton. You really wouldn't want to burn this in your fire like long term. It smokes a ton. It lights amazingly fast. It's like almost like it has gasoline on it. And I've seen this marketed as fat wood. If you go to like a camping supply place, you can buy a little bundle of this. It's just really sappy wood. I don't know how it forms because I have other pine that doesn't look like this. My theory is, looking at these chunks, is that this tree burned and that's why it's dead, is it just burned and died. And the sap didn't have a chance to run out of it or run into the bark as it would if a tree was dying, like slowly dying. So I've seen slowly dying trees, and even pine doesn't end up like this. So just looking at it, I can tell it's got some scorch marks, and my guess is this was burned, and that's what forms this. So I split this in the same way that I split all the other stuff, just on this little mallet with the axe upside down. But I get it real small, and I just build. When I build a fire, every time I build a fire, I just build a little. What do you call it? I don't know, maybe a log cabin, like so, out of that, and I get a skinny piece and just light it and go underneath it, and the whole thing just goes up super fast. But that's my first stage of kindling. Like I say, it's real smoky, so you want your smokestack completely open, the flue completely open before you start a fire with this. But on top of this, I stack some of that other little kindling, and then from that point on, you can put almost anything you want on the fire. I've been using this little chunk for like, I don't know, like a month maybe. And I have about 30 of them out there just sitting in the woods. Never hit my finger doing this. I'm bound to at some point. I haven't yet. Ow!